Welcome to Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things, the podcast show. I am your host, Carrie Roberts. And today, my guest is comedian and now author, Rodney Laney. Thank you for being here, Rodney. Excited to have you.
Yo, round of applause. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. And I just want to say, I know you're from New Jersey. I am also a Jersey person. And I always get excited. I tell people all the time there's like something about Jersey people, there's this Jersey pride. I don't know if other states
Yeah.
have it, but I'm excited to have a fellow Jersey person on. So welcome.
Well, I'm honored to be here. Oh man, what part of Jersey?
I am originally from Hunterdon County, which is like I say the Iowa of New Jersey, which is like the farm, like why we're called the Garden State. And now I live down the shore. So I know you're from Patterson originally.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's New Jersey is such a mix and such a beautiful place. I think people don't realize it because they only know Newark and Atlantic City, but there's so much to it.
You know what? And there's a part of me that kind of always wanted to move away from Jersey, right? It's
Mhm.
like I lived here all my life, but whenever I go away, I miss it.
Yes,
There's so much beauty in New Jersey that a lot of people are just not aware of. New Jerseyans, I mean, there's so many parks, and I just love nature. So it has so much to offer. Now it's so much green space.
it
It's
is.
incredible. Oh man, I don't know. It'd be hard to leave.
Yes, I agree. See, that's why we are the Garden State. It's true. So I want to get into your new book. Is called Lighten Up, and it's really this kind of mix of memoir and then kind of your journey into meditation for the last almost close to 10 years now. And you start off with a story that I think a lot of people can relate to. And I'd like you to kind of tell us a little bit more here, where you're about elementary age and you do this math bee, which is kind of like a spelling bee, and you don't really think much of it, and you really want your mother to be there. Your dad's not in the picture, and you actually win it, which is exciting. So I congratulate you on being a math wizard at such a young age.
Not
But
at all. We can
but
claim that on the competition.
add it to the resume, right? But you have this feeling of like, okay, excitement, I've won, but kind of this, my parents not here. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit, what age were you at that time? What was going through your mind? What feelings did you have? Not having your parent there, but also kind of winning this thing. I mean, this is the beginning of your book. So I assume it's a pretty big deal for you, a big moment.
Yeah, it was. And I kind of rediscovered that moment in the process of writing the book, just trying to figure out where should I start. And 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 it was connecting that moment to another moment in the book when the first time I ever jumped on stage. And the connection of those two moments, like, this is what I was looking for all the time. So I just to walk you through the story, yeah, I got selected to be in a math beat, and I was never a great student. I initially think it was to punish me, just to put me in front of a crowd. So so I go, and I the only other thing I remember academically being maybe where I excelled was knowing my alphabets.
There you go. ABCs and math. I think
That's where my genius peaked. I knew my alphabets before anybody else. And so I got chosen to do this math beat, man. And I remember asking my mom if she could come. My mom was always working, always a hard worker. And she said she would try. And so I win. And it's the first time I win anything. It's the first achievement in my entire life. And I'm looking, and there's no one of family to recognize that. Only just like this sea of unknown faces. And so I felt good about winning, but there's this, I won't say it was sadness, but a emptiness that was there when you've have an achievement and no one to really share it with or see it. But part I did leave out of the story was when I took that trophy home. My mom, she said she would give me $10. I don't recall if I put that in the story, but I was like, "Where that $10 at?" That was a lot of money back then. I was like, "If you wasn't there, I want that $10."
And did you get it?
She did. She
Oh.
honored her word.
So there you go. So, that's a good thing she couldn't be there.
That
She probably
was
was so
it.
shocked
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
that's amazing. Yeah, I think, it's something, at a young age, everybody wants their parent to see them, especially when they're doing well. And when they're not there, like you said, it's kind of this empty feeling. Was that something that was the reason you started that in the book? Was that something that was such a strong memory that feeling kind of carried throughout? Do you think that's why you kind of started with it?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because the like I said, that connects to my whole comedy journey. Like
Mhm.
whenever the first time I ever jumped on a stage in Ohio, I did that open mic, and again there was no family there, but there was this reward and laughter, and I just felt like, this is something. It felt like a validation once again, because there hasn't been many times in my life where I've been rewarded or won anything or any type of recognition until I started doing stand up. That's how come I knew it was for me, and I started auditioning and doing getting selected to do these television shows, um, HBO, the Late Late Show. My very first show was in uh, in Rotterdam,
Where is
believe it or
that?
not. Yeah, in in the Netherlands,
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
right next to Amsterdam. Crazy, right? So, yes, so those things are I feel like they bring out this feeling in me that is part of like what we call those cardinal memories. And it was like, and so every time I get that fulfilling, it generates this rush of emotions, you know. And now I don't need to have any family to be in the audience now, thanks to meditation, right? It's just like it's almost like the audience is my family. And
Mm.
so connecting those two um was enlightening for me in a way, because I uncovered that in the process of writing the book. And so that's why I encourage a lot of people to at least journal, because you discover so much about yourself. And reflecting on my entire life, I could start seeing how these patterns developed and help me become actually a better person.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying, and I think it's interesting. Like you said, I think sometimes so many people want that validation and support from their family, whether it's their parents, their significant other, their siblings, their kids. And some people spend their whole life trying to get that, and they don't. And so it's interesting. You're saying through meditation, you kind of found that in a unique way. I'm curious because it's not typical for men to be like, let me go meditate. That's not usually their first thing. It's not always in certain ethnic backgrounds for that also to be, let me do that. That's great. A lot of times it's pushed aside. What was it? And you said, I think 2013 you started. I know you
Mhm.
saw the pamphlet next to the dessert case, which I loved it, which is why you were like, oh, let me try this. But was there something else? Like, why at that moment did you say, maybe I should try this? Or was maybe there people in your life that had tried it and that influenced you?
So I had a lot of time on my hands at that time. It was going through a low. It was like I say a dry summer. And so there was a whole bunch of events that actually took place. One of them was I cut out television, right? So I cut out television and started reading more. And I got introduced to the Eastern philosophy through Jiddu Krishnamurti, Sri Nasgadatta Maharaj, and Sri uh, Rahmana Maharaj. I'm probably mangling the names, but anyway. And so in these books, I always found them fascinating, but they always talked about meditation, and it was one of those things I was like, I'll get around to it. I don't need it. And so having that a little bit of knowledge about meditation and wanting to try it, and having this little bit of a low in my comedy career, this pamphlet just spoke to me. It was like, well, you got the time, you might as well go and try it. And it was obviously it changed my life. It was so rewarding. It was just to sit still and be with yourself, and really do the deepest self discovery imaginable. And you tap into this potential that you just don't know, or at least I was unaware, and a lot of people speak about. But to actually realize it for yourself is was remarkable. So I just dove in deeper and deeper and deeper, and I committed to I mean hours of meditation, 3 4 hours a day. Like I had to my girl would be like, you wasn't meditating for no 4 hours.
That's hard. It's
You just
hard.
wasn't answering your phone.
It is. Well, and it's like, I mean, like you said, to sit still. And I don't, what type of meditation did you or do you do now? Because I know there's different types or different things that
Yeah,
people do.
they're so different. So this one was a Korean based meditation,
Okay.
and I just I just skimmed the surface with this meditation. Really, when I talk about reflective meditation, that's my own particular spin. And then I've also tried vipassana meditation, which is also I mean that's discovery on another level as well. And just a sidebar, I did that meditation because of the pandemic. Something I always
Mhm.
want to do, a silent retreat, and they needed 10 days minimum for your first time out. And so when the pandemic was like, yeah, I got 10 days.
Yeah. You're like, and I'll be
I
anywhere,
got
please. Yeah.
30 days if you need them. There's
Yes.
nothing going on. So that's Vipassana. And so that's a little bit different than the one I talk about in the book. But I definitely broached that type of meditation as well. And they both have significant benefits. And
So,
so let me just tap on the other point that you had, because you was talking about
yeah.
black and brown
Yeah.
communities, and it was during this whole process because I noticed that there's not, like you said, a lot of male and then African American men who meditate. Uh, it In our community in general is more about church and praying. And so
Mhm.
trying to get people to come over to this side is just like, mm-mm. My mama like, I ain't meditate. She think I'm trying to take her Jesus away. I'm like, Mom, I'm not trying to take Jesus away. I ain't trying to steal your wine and crackers, Mom. I'm just trying to give you a little cheese to go with it. You know what I mean? Not at odds with each other, and trying
Right.
to get people to get out of those preconceived notions
You
was
saying
the
you're
reason I wrote the
butter
book.
and jelly, didn't you? Isn't that the term you used? That it's like peanut butter and jelly? Yes.
Yeah, probably. Exactly. So it's and yeah, so I use my story. I mean, if you read my story, it's
Mhm.
kind of hood. I mean, a little bit, but it makes it available, accessible. I would say to other people. Say, oh, I mean, he's just like this regular dude who grew up in Patterson, and now he's on this particular journey. I mean, I'm hoping it will be inviting for people.
Yeah, I agree, and I think what was interesting to me was actually the layout of the book because for the most part, most of the chapters were titled as a person. And then at the end of each chapter you have the word in italics discarded. What does discarded mean and why did you kind of choose the name of a person for most of the chapters?
Um, I don't know. Those names just kind of came to me. I guess that's who it was about at that time. And it's funny that you point that out. I didn't really even realize that. But now I know Miss Offenberg, and I guess as a growing up, those were the people who impacted my what I call cardinal memories the most, right?
Mhm.
Those they're usually associated with a person. And so I guess that's why I chose those names. And your other question was what was it?
At the end where you write
Oh,
in
discarded,
italics the
discarded.
discarded. Yeah, what does that mean?
So discarded is when we sit down and do these meditations, we would just bring them up and discard it. And for instance, it would be like we would throw them into we would say like a flame.
Hmm.
It's a visualization technique. But as you review your life, you just bring up the thoughts and you discard them into this billion degree flame that just burns up everything, and you discard it and discard it. And I don't know. I mean, initially, I don't know why or how it works, but I just know it does. And everyone who was participating in this type of meditation would get rid of all of these memories that was holding them down. And not like you will forget the memory, but I feel like it severs the emotional attachment that we have. And those cardinal memories are the memories that kind of shape our personality. Those are the turning points in our lives. And I feel like they threw us off balance a little bit and shaped our perspective on our life and how we see the world. And the truth gets a little distorted from because of these memories that we have that we hold on to, and most of us is just unaware of it.
So how I'm curious for you because I'm thinking even, myself, like how long does it take for you to discard a memory? Let's say you have one that's just you really felt an emotional attachment to, maybe it was a negative one. Was
Hmm.
it that first time? Was it 6 times? Was it at what point were
Man.
you like it's discarded, cuz I feel like that's a long process.
That's the $1 million question right there.
Yes.
Because depending on, and obviously a lot of people don't want to let these memories go, and you sit in them, and although you suppose to just let them go, as you can imagine, some of these memories don't want to go, and they'll have you in them, and then you're like, oh, I remember that, and kind of get caught up into that moment. And then you go, all right, let me just throw it away, throw it away, throw it away. So you're throwing away these memories every day. Like I was probably reviewing my life on a daily basis for like a couple of years. But as what happens is as you continuously throw these memories or discard these memories, other memories come up. And so you go, wow, I forgot about that. And then you can see for yourself, like how deep these memories go. And not that you intentionally bury these memories, but they're just there and you're unaware of it, because we just, we're creating more memories on a daily basis. But when you sit down and really be still and bring them up and discard them, a whole nother world starts to open up. So you start to uncover these other memories, and so the ones that we kind of bury too, and then bringing those up. And then that's when I call the book Lighten Up, because it's basically a double entendre. It means to
Mhm.
lighten up and not take things so seriously, but also you do lighten up on a spiritual level too, because all of these things are they're material, and you feel it. And that's why I was like, wow, this has to catch on. This is an amazing meditation.
Do you find that because I feel like again the concept of kind of discarding and throwing something away is can be easier said than done as we're kind of talking about. But where is the difference between I should take this memory as something because okay, it was a negative event or an experience and I should take it as a guide so that maybe this doesn't happen to me again versus allowing it to keep me in fear or define who I am. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what you want to know, like, are there some cardinal memories that kind of help us navigate through life so that we don't experience a bad thing? And that's
Yes.
right. So, and I mean, memories are definitely serve a purpose. Obviously, if you need to get to go from point A to point B, you can remember how to do everything. It's every serves an incredible function. So it's not like we get rid of the memories that serve us. But fear doesn't serve us. Fear of anything creates a distortion, or it creates an imbalance. So in meditation, we learn about equanimity. And so where where these memories that come up, especially when they're in your subconscious, they create a distortion. And this distortion, I mean, it creates when there's distortion, there's no clarity. And so once you alleviate the just the emotional connection though to it, so you detach the memory from the emotion, which is fear. You still have the memory, you still understand what happened, but you just don't have the fear. And so, because if think about it, if you're afraid, then you won't move, and that can be very limiting because this particular situation that's occurring right now may not have the same outcome as the one that you hold in your memory. And so it that you can see how it's very limiting. And so without the emotional attachment to it, there's clarity in this moment. And so I would call right thought, which will lead to right action in this moment. And that's where people's potential is released.
I'm like taking it in. That was really good, Rodney. I think that that's you know, when we're thinking we're thinking about memories, it's, you know, that's the challenge, right? Like, what is something teaching us? What do we need to let go? But I think you're right. This idea of fear is not helping us. It's keeping us stuck and kind of getting rid of that piece of it. But like you said, it's kind of a process. And you had I wanted to read just something real quick from the end of your book, um which is a moment that you share and kind of how you've looked at it differently, and I'd love for you to dive into it in a moment. You wrote that when I was living on North 4th Street, Eddie and I were sleeping in my bed when I had an accident. Mom discovered the pee and whooped me where I lay, wet draws and all. It was a stinging memory. Before meditation, I only had the capacity to view that memory from a perspective formed as a child. During a discard section or session, I saw the scenario from a superior perspective. It was as if I had zoomed out to see the entire picture, which included mom's aspect. Her frustration with her son resonated with me as I meditated. Being able to see that changed memory from that third person viewpoint created real empathy. I say real empathy because I was able to feel her emotions while not feeling my own. That bears repeating, but I won't repeat it. So, can you talk a little bit about just that passage? Because I read that and I was like, that's really profound. And I actually, after I read it, it made me think of certain situations and pulling back, you know, whether it's in the past or recent past. Just, I would love for you to just speak to that more and what that means to pull back into that third party perspective.
Right. So in this process in this meditation, when you viewing these memories and you no longer have that emotional attachment to them, it's just like they're coming up and they're disappearing, they're disappearing. And it's almost like there's what remains when all of these memories are discarded is the awareness of the memories. So it's like almost like, without sounding too crazy, it's like almost like Rodney disappears. It's just the awareness is there. And in that awareness, there's no connection to Rodney or Rodney's memories. It's just this I saw this whole scene play out. And it was almost because I've always saw it from my perspective, the kid that was getting hit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the kid that didn't deserve to be being to get hit, or this was like, I don't know how many whoopings or whatever it is, that perspective that I had. I never looked at it from maybe how many times she had told me to, not went to bed or whatever. Never took an account of how frustrated she must have been in all those situations. What was I doing in those situations that provoked her to do what she did? I was no longer the victim in that memory. And so with that, it was like the wow moment. It was like, wow, this is. And so you can apply that to almost all of your memories, right? You can say, wow, what was what was what was I doing in that situation that um provoked, someone to react whatever way that we deem was inappropriate, because we're just looking at this situation from our egotistical perspective, right? And from the right and wrong. But when there's no right and wrong, there's just, it's almost like you're just in this awareness where you're completely, if it exists, right, completely objective point of view. And when that happened to me, I was like, I felt like I owed my mom an apology. Just like I've been selfish in my way of processing all of these events my entire life. I never thought about it from somebody else's perspective.
What do you say to somebody that says, in a because someone might look at that and say, well, that was an abusive situation and that, or something worse had
Like me,
happened.
like I
Yeah.
used to say that.
Right. So when somebody says that, when they say, well, it still wasn't right, or that still was, hurtful, what is your response to that? Because we're not saying it makes it okay. You're just saying there's an awareness of multiple perspectives. Is that what you
For
mean?
sure. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Definitely. It doesn't, like, it was just like no victim in that scenario, because that scenario, let's be clear, doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. So holding on to that, it serves no real purpose, other than
Mhm.
going back to what you said earlier. Like, holding on to that memory is not going to, like, she's never going to come in the room again and with me. I hope.
Yeah.
At least not with wet drawers on. I mean, so it doesn't serve a purpose for me to hold on
Mhm.
to it. You know what I mean? It's so just let it go. Just let it go. It can only, the only thing it could do is prevent me from being closer to my mom, because I'm holding on to all this stuff, and it just doesn't, it's not worth it.
Mhm.
There's no I don't know why the mind works that way, but I'm happy to be here to undo those workings, and allow people to gain access to this meditation so they can see for themselves. Because me telling you this is just me telling you, but if you don't experience it for yourself, it's just words, because we've all developed our own perspective, and people listening to me right now, whether it's right or wrong, but until you sit back and go through this process yourself, it's just it. I don't know. I mean, I trust that most people will at least attempt it based on my experience, but it's just so rewarding. That's all I can pretty much put to that to carry.
Well, I think too, I mean, the way you're describing it, it's a form of therapy in a sense. I mean, we talk, I've been in therapy and I've talked to many psychologists on the show as well, and we're always talking about an awareness. Meditation is an awareness. So it's almost like, I think sometimes when people have gone to maybe something that's more traditional and they're like, it doesn't work, to hear someone like yourself talk about this, it kind of gives hope or curiosity to say, well, maybe this way will work for me. Maybe this will kind of create something new for my mindset.
Right, right. I think, and even if this, it'll put you on the track. I think that's the most important part, to get on the track and really, it's just about self-reflection. And I think that once we all can sit back and look at how we've been operating, look at how we've been uh, being controlled by our past, and and tap into um, your potential through self-discovery, then you'll lighten up, and you'll become a better person. And so you spread that, which is exactly what I'm doing. Like, you feel compelled to do it, and in that process, we say each one teach one, and then, and that's how we create a fundamental change in the bigger picture, right? It starts with the individual. The individual is the collective.
Yes, I agree. And I love how you're saying all of this. Like I said, I like how things were written and how you're kind of speaking about this today. You, like I said, you started this almost 10 years ago now. What would you say is probably the biggest change for you in either internally, spiritually, or just in the way you interact with people in your relationships? What has been the biggest change you think?
Oh man, there's there it's more about the other person now, right? So through self-discovery, one becomes uh one taps into, like we say, this awareness, right? And in the process of tapping into this awareness and meditating, the the idea of these personalities that we created start to diminish, right? Because it on some it's all ego driven stuff, right? And so the more the person is concerned about themselves, I feel like they're or especially in my experience too, people are less compassionate.
Hmm.
And so the more you discover that this connectivity that we have to others and the universe itself, that makes you more compassionate, because in essence you are taking care of yourself, because you see yourself reflected in other people. And
Yes.
that's how we make a change. And that's been the most, even my comedy isn't about me anymore. It's really about the people. When I go out there, it's not about elevating my career anymore. It's about making sure everybody have a good time, and they don't, and then however fleeting that moment may be, we've had fun,
Hmm.
and that expands against, crosses all races, and we start to eliminate things such as race, you know what I mean? But that's a
Hmm.
whole nother story right there. But those are identifications that we have through memories. But once you tap into that deeper uh, self-awareness, then it's like me looking at Kerry Roberts right now and seeing Rodney Laney.
Hmm. Yes, I this is why I do this show. I like want to give you a high five over the air, and it's I love it cuz it's like I bring amazing people like yourself on, and everybody says it in their own unique beautiful way. And so I always, like, for me personally, I take a piece with me and I'm like, "Oh, that was really interesting. I'm going to think about it this way." And I think that it's great to have people like yourself talking about this and sharing this. Um if people want to learn more about anything we talked about, they want to read your book, where is the best place to do that and get that information?
Well, they can definitely find it on anywhere they buy books. This, how come I knew this message is important? Because I thought I was going to self-publish, and through a confluence of good fortune, I got a deal through Post Hill Press,
Mhm.
and it's being distributed through Simon and Schuster. So Amazon, B&B, wherever you get your books, you can get this book. And Lighten Up by Rodney Laney. You can also go to my website, and then follow me on I'm Comedy Rod on Instagram, the real Rodney Laney as well, and Rodney Laney on Facebook. And man, this has been so rewarding for me.
I love it. It's so, so good. Yeah, definitely. I recommend everyone to go check it out. The last question I want to ask you, Rodney, I ask all of my guests, is what is one word or quote or mantra that you try to live by every single day?
Leave every situation better than I found it.
I love it. Ah, I love it. Thank you so much, Rodney, for being here, sharing your truth and vulnerability, and now at that point to kind of share that message as well. I greatly appreciate it. And I look forward to hearing more about this in the future.
Yes, thank you so much.